Hi, so welcome back to basic UV mapping and UV unwrapping. And what I'm going to do here with this test crate is just show you some more techniques for mapping and how we can use the UVs to help us design our UV layouts, our UV layout wireframes. So first thing I'm going to do is just come in here and I'm going to assign my reference texture. There we go. You can see this one needs mapping, and what I'm going to do is switch this over to my UV texture editor, and I'm going to go in and start mapping. First thing I need to do is just select the crate itself. You see the crate's got these other little nodules which are kind of custom rivet bolts. I'm just going to do the crate. So the crate kind of got recessed faces, so to quickly do that, select it and then say right click face. I'm going to select a face just by selecting it there, and I'm going to grow the selection by holding down shift and angle, greater than bracket, which is the arrow on the period or full stop key, and that grows the selection. And I'm then going to say, make sure I'm in the polygons, create UVs, planar mapping, options, and I want to map from the Y direction. There we go. And you can see it's mapped out here. Just going to push this over to the side here. And I'm going to do the same for every other side. So face, grow the selection. That one is going to be on the Z direction. Now, in fact, I'm going to do the other side. In fact, let's just deselect, select them both. I go to 4, you can see I'm going to got them both selected. I'm going to grow the selection by just holding shift, greater than, grow the selection, and I'm going to say 6, apply on the Z direction. There you go, I've now mapped the other two sides. And to prove that the other side's selected, if I just say move, select UV shell, there you go, there's the other side, done. And hit W, come out of that, and do the same for the X direction. So you can see both of those. Grow selection, apply there, and then move UV shell. And you see my cube is not exactly rectangular, it's actually flatter on this side than it is on the top. That's why my squares are a little bit flat there. And then so I'm going to apply for the Y direction for the base. There we go. It's that one. So I've got all 6 sides done. What I need to do is now rearrange in this view to use optimum space for my UVs. If I select this squares, let's put that one in there. Select them all. Hit R to scale them down. Then move them into selection. There we go. Zoom in. Dim it so you can just see a little bit clicking. And then I just did the 50% image view. And I've got all my dead space on one side, so I'm going to use this dead space to map these bolts which I've got here. You can see they've all got the same basic UVs, but it's not very good UVs. So what I can do is I can map one. So what I'm going to do is select it, and I'll show you a little technique. I could map this cylindrically and then map the top. I mean, the first method of doing this is I could do cylindrical maps. So what I would do is select it, go to create UVs, cylindrical map, and you can see there I've got a nice little cylinder wraparound gizmo, and that allows me to, if I click on this little red handle, pull it around and completely map. Let's frame that so it's mapped cylindrically. And then what I could then do is say face, select the top face, and just do a planar, and then I'd have this bolt completely mapped out with this cylinder. This is the 6 sides, and then the top. If I selected all those and just do the UV, hit R, scale it down, I can get that to match one side. And if I'm just going to put this into position, actually move those UVs up so they made sense, and that allows me to map all the sides. That's one way of mapping it, but as you can see, my UVs are crooked, and that's because this quad square here, this quad polygon, is actually got a distortion where this edge is shorter than this edge, and this distortion that you see is in fact, if I say display polygons, face triangles, it's the dotted line that divides this polygon into 2 triangles, and that's where it's bending. So to avoid that, the other method of UV mapping, something like this, is to just going to do face, select it all, let's just frame that, and what I can do is I can say planar map from the top, there we go, and that maps the entire bolt, but obviously where the faces are at 90 degrees to the mapping plane, or a 90-degree tangent to the mapping plane, you get this last pixel edge being stretched or streaked along these faces. You can see that these numbers here are kind of stretching. Now I kind of use this technique just to save time. What I do is I leave the mapping with planar, I'll go into my UV editor window, and then what I will do is I will select face mode, drag the top selection of faces, see them selected there, and I'll say select, convert selection to UVs, and then hit R, and that allows me to scale those in, just so that I can see that the sides are now angled away, so they are picking up some of the UV coordinates. And then what I will do is I'll marquee select the UVs. Whoops, I've got UV mode, UV. Marquee select the UVs for this second and top row, and I'm going to scale that one in first of all. And I'm going to deselect the ones in the center, and I'm going to scale that one out. That's just so that I've got enough UVs that I can see there. And then for the bottom one, I can select the UVs for the bottom one, and I can scale those out. And if I select everything here, I can scale it in, and thus every side has got a UV to it. So that's the second way of doing it. You can see though I've still got distortion because these sides are not angled. Now if this model, let's just say vertex, scale this model in like that, that would work, but I can't do that because that's changing the design. So what I will do is a combination of cylindrical and planar to get me a nice UV mapped bolt. So what I'm going to do is just hit W, pull this one out, and I can do this in two ways. I can say select the top, apply UVs, oops, put that up there, select the second row, apply the UVs, put that up there, and then the UVs that are left over, I'm going to select them in the UV editor, and these I'm going to say cylindrical, so create UV cylindrical map. Again, take the gizmo, extend it all the way around, and if I just move that down there, I now have the top part and the bottom part of that bolt, and I can just scale those accordingly. So if I say UVs, you can see it's readable, it's becoming more readable on here, and let's put these into the right place. In fact, I can probably zoom in on those, make them just one block high. So if I just do this, and let's move that one to the side, select this one, make this one block high as well. In fact, I should make that one block high and make this one 2 blocks high because it's actually bigger. There we go, it reads better. Again, select that one, let's put that over to one side there. And then for these two, I'm going to bring these down in scale so they match. So that one comes down to be roughly one width size of that one. Pull this one down. Bring that one down. Make this one, I can actually gauge it so that the inner edge is the width of one of these blocks. There we go. And I can put the outer edge, make this one match the outer edge. There you go. Bring that one down. And then if you like, you can actually put this inside there because it's not really going to affect it any other way. And then with that mapped up, what I can do is now select them all, scale them to a reasonable size, because obviously remember it is a bolt. It's not supposed to be that big. And then I can position them because the size of each one is relative to each other, so they're all a good ratio. I'm just going to put these to a nice position in my UV map. In fact, actually, just put that one there. And then this can go here. There we go. And if I select the cube, you can see that I got one bolt there. And because the bolts are all the same size, what I can do is I can either duplicate this one and delete these to replace it, which is one way, and thus each one of these has its UV. So if I delete that one, delete those, and I can just select that one, hit Shift D and position these into the correct place. And you can see that I now select the cube, I have a situation where each one of those UVs is sitting on top of each other. So the UVs for this bolt allows to move those down. I'm not going to impede those, but if I want to leave them on top, then they all use the same UV space, which is cool because it means if they don't have different textures, then that saves us some UV space that I can use for a different part or a different model at a later date. The other thing you need to remember is that if you need to bake out any kind of transfer map or ambient occlusion map, then you will need to position each one of these bolts UVs so they occupy a unique space on the UV texture map, so that you get a nice ambient bake or transfer bake map that comes out. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just pause it here, and then I'll come back just to show you a few extra little tips for UV mapping.